All right, joining me once again here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is my good buddy Lee Fang. Lee is the author of the book The Machine, a field guide to the resurgent right. He is a reporter for The Nation magazine and The Republic Report, which you can find at republicreport.org. You can also follow him on Twitter at LHFang. Lee, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Hey, it's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
All right, so Lee, let's start out today with your latest report for The Nation. And it's an amazing report. It's in-depth. It's actually about the creepy evolution of lobbyists. It's called Where Have All the Lobbyists Gone? Man, just tell us all about it.
Well, this story is about the federal lobbying system and how it's completely collapsed, why federal lobbyists are deregistering at an increasing rate, why the law that has been on the books for years is riddled with loopholes, and how the Department of Justice, the entire enforcement regime for this law, not only is weak, but hasn't been enforced really ever. And that's one of the biggest revelations of the story, that not only is the lobbying system that we have that's supposed to help the public and the press keep tabs on which corporations and special interest groups are attempting to influence the government, not only is that falling apart, but we have no one actually enforcing our laws.
So let's start with the big question. Why has there been a major drop-off in terms of people registering and groups registering as lobbyists?
Well, in the last couple of years, we've seen the number of registered lobbyists drop. It's now at around 12,000, the lowest it's been since 2002. And the amount spent, the aggregate amount that all the different corporations, unions, and special interest groups, how much they've been spending has been precipitously dropping since 2010. Now, this doesn't mean that lobbying in general is dying, that's shriveling up, that no one's trying to influence the government. What's happening is that their lobbyists, for good reason, are realizing that there are very few incentives to disclose and file your paperwork and show who's paying you and what you're working on. One of the biggest disincentives for registration actually came from President Obama. President Obama promised to clean up the lobbying system in Washington, D.C., to drain the swamp and clamp down on influence peddling. So one of his first and only actions on lobbying was an executive order he issued in January of 2009, as soon as he got into office, saying that registered lobbyists would not be welcome to his government, that he would not appoint anyone who's a lobbyist. So instead of helping transparency, helping clean up the system, what that meant was, simply put, lobbyists deregistered, and that pushed the system more into the dark. And even Obama didn't stick to his own executive order. He issued lots of exemptions to allow registered lobbyists into his administration anyway. So it's been very problematic. And as I mentioned at the top of this interview, if you're a lobbyist, not only is there this administration kind of disincentive, but if you understand the system and understand that the Department of Justice is not enforcing the law, then why the heck would you comply anyways?
So like you write in there that, the official, 2013, this last year, you write that there was $3.2 billion officially spent on lobbyists, but the actual dark total on this is actually closer to $9 billion. Describe the disparity and how that actually works. It's just people just not reporting, or where is the money actually going, and how is it actually being funneled into different places?
That's a good question. There are two dynamics that are leading to this trend. One is that the statutory definition of lobbying only covers one tiny part of the profession. And even there are loopholes in the law. So, that's kind of traditional, or, the caricature of lobbyists as the guy that goes, that Chevron or some company hires, that goes to the Capitol Hill and then has meetings with legislators and their staff and, offers them pieces of legislation that they can submit. That is part of the lobbying industry, but that's the only part covered by the law. If you are the type of lobbyist who goes into someone's district, that finds people that can come to Capitol Hill, coach them on how to testify, if you're flying in thousands of people to hold a rally, if you're airing those special ads that say, call your representative, tell them to vote no on X legislation. If you're doing the polling, the research, the legal kind of back-end work, none of that needs to be disclosed as lobbying. So that's a huge chunk of the industry that's simply not captured by the statutory definition of the law. The other aspect is that the law is riddled with loopholes. Even if you are peddling influence every day on Capitol Hill, as long as you can credibly argue, and assuming there was an enforcement regime that actually worked, but if you could credibly argue that you were spending less than 20% of your billable hours on actual contacts with lawmakers, then you don't need to report anyways.
Wow. Ridiculous. I'm talking to my buddy Lee Fang, reporter for The Nation magazine and The Republic Report. You can find him on Twitter at LHFang. Let's talk about we kind of touched on it a little bit about how the major scandal of this is the fact that there is pretty much little to no oversight. Let's delve into that a little bit more and how this is actually working, and or theoretically how it's not working because there really is no oversight over this. Talk a little about that.
Yeah, absolutely. The system works basically is that if you are a lobbyist or you feel compelled to disclose under the law, you go to the Secretary of the Senate or the House Clerk, these offices on Capitol Hill, you register, and then you have to file quarterly statements about who's paying you, what you're working on. Simply put, the only enforcement that happens is that if you do register and you forget to file your quarterly or annual statement, one of the clerks at these two offices forwards on your delinquent registration form to an office in the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice has one full-time staffer looking at these. And they will then send you a letter saying, hey, you've been delinquent or you filled out your form incorrectly. Can you comply? Now, if you refuse to respond to the Department of Justice for months and months and months, and nothing happens, they'll threaten you with civil penalties. But in terms of enforcing the law, that is it. If you don't even register in the first place, there is absolutely no one looking for you. The Department of Justice has no one out in the field looking for unregistered lobbyists. The House Clerk, Secretary of the Senate has no one out there, no agents, scanning the Hill looking for unregistered lobbyists. And here's the other thing. When the Abramoff scandal broke in before 2006, and Democrats came in and they updated the ethics laws in 2007, the big post-Abramoff update, they added criminal penalties for failing to register, right? And since that update, they said, this is going to clean up Washington. We've made the penalties so much stiffer for failing to register. That law has simply never been enforced. There hasn't been one enforcement action for criminal or civil penalties for failing to register. So if you don't register and you are engaging in 100% of your time in lobbying contacts, or you're just on the Hill every day peddling influence, and you don't register, there are no penalties.